So let's start off by me saying that I think that being a musician is the absolute best job in the world. It's what I get to do every day, and I'm really, really grateful about that. But the funny thing about being a musician is actually, for me, the hardest part about being a musician is not the part where you like show up and do music. It's kind of all of the other parts of the job that are more difficult. It's the business aspects of the job that can be really tricky and kind of be the reason that a lot of musicians decide that maybe that's not actually what they want to pursue full-time. Ciao y'all, welcome to Making a Musician. It's me, your host Helen, and today we are talking about the top 3 qualities that you kind of need if you want to be a successful musician, or maybe not necessarily the only 3 qualities or the most important 3 qualities, but 3 qualities that I find very important and I see very strongly in a lot of the most successful musicians that I know. So let's get right into it. All right, the number 1 skill that you need if you want to be a successful musician is the ability to take constructive criticism. And by this, I mean actual tangible and actionable feedback, not just people yelling at you and telling you that they hate your work, which, fun fact, that will absolutely happen as well if you become a musician. I have definitely had people walk up and just say like strange, horrifying, rude things after performances. That's just like a reality of the job. But no, I'm talking about, when I say constructive feedback, like actual feedback that someone is giving you that's like actionable, makes sense for you, and is coming from a good place. And I have a lot of colleagues that I've seen just kind of not get as far as I think that they could, or be as successful as they could, because they're simply not willing to listen to feedback. I see this a lot, especially with singers, because I think for a lot of singers, singing is very personal, right? Like the voice is the instrument, and I find this to be especially the case with younger singers. I think that when someone criticizes you, it can feel more like a personal attack than a piece of constructive criticism, which it is. And that is just because it's difficult in the beginning to separate yourself from the instrument. You know, I always love that example of if an instrumentalist's instrument like has a problem or malfunctions in the middle of the performance, everybody's just kind of like, oh yeah, something bad happened with the instrument, versus if something goes wrong with my instrument in the middle of the performance, I am the instrument and somehow it feels like my fault and a failure on my part. And so it can be really, really difficult for us in the beginning. I find that now I'm very good at separating myself from, you know, my voice, but in the beginning it can be really, really tricky to do this. It's really important for artists to be able to look at themselves and hear legitimate feedback and then apply it. It's also difficult because in our field of work we get a lot of really, really bad feedback. For example, I am a lyric coloratura, which if you don't know what that is, it's a voice type, and basically it means that I sing very high and kind of loud. And I once had a coach in a coaching tell me that they thought I was like a spinto, which is more of like a dramatic soprano kind of voice, not quite a dramatic soprano, it's like one step under that. And it's just funny because, like, you know, that was feedback coming from somebody that I really respected, who was a really, really like smart person, very like well-rounded, very knowledgeable in this field. But at the end of the day, I just had to go home and say, wow, that was terrible feedback. And I got to do that because I'm able to listen to feedback that people are giving me, really internalize constructive criticism, and then decide whether or not I think it's actually helpful and applies to me. That's a very important skill for us to have. And if anyone's interested in hearing different ways that I process and sort through feedback that I am given, I am more than happy to make a video about that, because I think it is a really important thing for singers and all musicians to do, which leads me to my next point, which is to be a successful musician, you have to kind of have this constant desire to innovate, explore, and discover. The musicians that I see that I think are having the most exciting careers are the ones that have managed to think just a little bit outside of the box and do something kind of outside of the realm of the traditional career path. The world is changing so fast and so constantly, and that can be really scary for people that are already in a career path that is full to the brim of uncertainty. But when I look at the musicians that I respect the most and who are having really exciting careers, I notice that they have a constant desire to learn new things, branch out, and innovate. They're constantly expanding their area of expertise, and this can be really difficult, I think, because learning new things and growing in new areas means that you're opening yourself up to failure. They're always approaching new ideas and coming up with new plans that may or may not turn out the way that they wanted them to. In this same vein, they're always trying to innovate. Even personally, I've taken on a ton of projects in the last couple years that didn't pan out. I have a failed recital series, a failed scenes program, I have a failed musicians book club kind of thing, exciting. Lots of the projects that I tried didn't pan out, but a lot of them did, and I wouldn't have any of those failures or successes if I wasn't constantly trying to do new things. Like I said, these projects didn't pan out for one reason or another, but I did learn something from each and every one of them, and that thing I learned allowed me to go on to the next project that I wanted to work on a little bit better, knowing a little bit more, and that enhanced my ability to be successful in this arena. The top musicians I know are constantly looking for a new path to take and striving to make their work new and better in some capacity. I'm not saying that they're working 80 hours a week to reinvent the wheel, but these people are always thinking just a little bit outside the box, and they're often coming up with really exciting ideas because of that. And number 3, this is my third tip, my third trait that I think is very important, and that is they just don't take themselves too seriously. I know that the world likes to portray classical musicians as this like deep, pensive, brooding bunch, but I don't really see that actually in many of my successful colleagues. The best musicians that I know are ones that kind of approach their work from a place of fun and joy. And this is not to say that they don't have a deep respect for their art, but it's more that they understand that at the end of the day, we're all just kind of making a lot of noise. In the past, I know I've personally taken myself way too seriously, and this has not led to me getting good work done. In my experience, it's really a hindrance, and it's really kind of frustrating, and it just like makes all of my creativity get like stuck and blocked, and it's not really great for me. I find that when I'm taking myself too seriously, I have a really difficult time getting out of my head. And granted, sometimes this can be beneficial from a technical perspective, but I think that generally at the end of the day, my job is to share music with people and share art with people, and so I can't really be up there on stage giving myself a voice lesson every day. That's not really what anyone wants to see for the most part when they go to see a performance. And so not taking myself too seriously is really been very beneficial. I find that when I take myself too seriously, I really do have a very difficult time connecting with my audience, which is kind of the whole point of my job. And I find that my colleagues who can toe the line gracefully and do both, where they kind of take themselves seriously, but they still are like really engaging in fun and play, and they're really lovely to work with. Those are the colleagues that I love to work with the most. All right, thank you so much for joining me today. That's all that I have for you today. So if you enjoyed, please like, comment, and subscribe. That's it for me. Bye!